tell you something. Sometimes Dr. Pepper's the best. I got a case of Dr. Pepper because sometimes there's something about it. I need it. Man, I'll tell you what, guys. When the weather changes, my face breaks out. Still. I remember parents always told us when we were in high school that when we got older, we wouldn't have as many breakouts. It's not true. I think they just told us that to keep our minds off of it. Anyway, I'm doing a refresher over here on carburetors. Right? So I'm working on motorcycle carburetors. And motorcycle carburetors have all types of different instruments. All it's doing is putting gas in your firing chamber, right? So you have a carburetor, and it doesn't matter what kind of carburetor, it connects to your intake. So this right here is where fuel passes directly into the firing chamber. And on a two-stroke, you have no valves. So when the piston comes up and compresses, it compresses the fuel that you're adding with the carburetor right here. All right? So the carburetor bolts on. And all the carburetor does then is it adjusts your fuel mixture. Okay? So how much air and fuel you get in. I mean, I'm no professional by any means. I've worked on a lot of motorcycle carburetors and stuff. And they got a ton of gaskets and blah, blah, blah. And anything that goes bad, look at all the parts, just so you guys can be aware of what a motorcycle looks like. Look at these parts to a carburetor. It's insanity. And it can really be daunting and overwhelming, you guys. Anyway, you got a main jet and a secondary jet that's sitting there. And all jets are, is if you can see this, look at those tiny, tiny, tiny little holes, guys. That's where your fuel goes through and mixes with air, right? And the jets sit inside the carburetor here. And what happens is that when the pistons are moving, they create a vacuum, what's called a vacuum. So the engine will naturally try to suck in air while the pistons are going up and down. And this is your throttle plate in here. And when you open that, it changes the pressure and it naturally sucks gasoline almost like a fuel pump into the chamber here. Through these regulatory fuel valves, or sometimes you got needle valves that screw. There's all types of valves, and you got two. You got your main, and then you got your secondary. But you can have more, and you can have mixture screws. So I'm just kind of doing a refreshing course here, and I thought I could really try to explain it to you guys. But then when I got down here and I started talking about it, it's like you really got to get your hands dirty. And then on these boats, they're even more complicated, you guys. I'm just learning, because the problem with a boat, and almost like a motorcycle, is you're going to have two different operations for the vehicle. So now if you have like a lawnmower, you can have a simple carburetor with like one jet, and just all it does is kind of pump a little bit of fuel. And what happens, I'll show you a picture of fuel atomizing. It's called atomization. When the fuel gets released and it gets sucked into the firing chamber, it turns into a mist. It's called atomization, and then that's what your piston comes up, and then obviously you ignite it and you get your horsepower, your explosion that forces your piston down. The problem with boats that I'm learning is they're super complicated because you have two different operations on the water. You're going to be sometimes you're just going to be idling or trolling with the motor, and you're going to need less gas. And then you're going to have, when you have a high speed, when you open it up. So you have two different forms of operation on a boat. That's why they got these here. Then you got to set these up. These are your needle valves. They're going to adjust your air and fuel mixtures into your jets. It sounds super complicated, and it is, until you do a couple of them, and it's all about just playing with it and realizing what you're doing. Like I said, you got a high and a low, basically, is what it's called, and you turn these to adjust your air fuel mixture. They're super complicated, and I don't think we'll ever see them again. They have them on some sports bikes and stuff that are really small and tiny motors, and dirt bikes maybe yet, some of them, if you get cheap enough. But man, that's why we've done away with them. So if you don't mind learning about carburetors and working on them, you'll be able to get really good deals everywhere, because nobody wants to deal with them. When you put a carburetor away, you got to run premium gas. Man, I thought I'd have a tutorial here on carburetor operation because I'm trying to get some a refresher course on it. I came down here just to take a look and get ready because I got the other carburetor coming. I'm getting it from a motor shop, so I have a good feeling that they already put it together for me. But I might have to rip it apart if that donut I showed you starts to wear out. And what happens is that all that material I showed you on my last video will get in and clog up all the jets, all them little tiny holes and stuff in the carburetor jets. Now we switched over to a fuel pump system, and what it does is it has high pressure and it goes to fuel injectors, which is awesome. And the computer reads on a couple sensors on a car where your mass absolute position and like a couple little things and air pressure and blah blah blah, and it can just mix your fuel for you. So, but if you're going to be a mechanic and you want to find good deals, a lot of times you're going to be dealing with these dang carburetors. And I suggest that if you're given the chance not to, stay away from them. Some people love them, and I love it on my sports bike because I got them tuned myself and I can really get it running good. But it still doesn't. It won't supersede a fuel injection system. You can only get it about as good. And then on these bolts, look at this. It's got silencers, you guys. These are silencers, so this is your air intake. Now, what I'm going to do on these old carburetors, what you can do, and what I'm going to show you guys when I make the next video, is when I put the new, it's not new, obviously it's a used carburetor, but it came from a machine shop, so he said he put new gaskets on it and stuff, so I'm guessing he checked all the needle valves, and he seems like the kind of guy that would. It's a small engine shop. I'm going to have to cut a hole in the case of the motor and run a hose so that I can spray, if I want to, from the outside, I can spray a little bit of starter fluid in to crank over the engine right away. I'll show you guys that. That's going to be like a hack. I have to. I have no choice. So I'm going to try to put it behind the intake fin that I have. I'll show you next time in the next clip. I just wanted to make a video today. I thought this would be a good one, but it's turning out to be too complicated to try to convey the information over the camera. You're going to get to see me install it and adjust it in my next video, but stay away from carburetors. It's just, the problem with it is they all get old. They got so many gaskets. Every little thing can mess up a carburetor, and it's got to be almost perfectly adjusted to have the right fuel mixture. I don't even know what they were thinking, to be honest. I've seen guys that just ran hoses on these old motors, straight gas dumped into the engine before, you guys. And it worked for a long time. I've seen it, old Evinrude, like 10 horses and stuff, run forever. All they do is run a hose, they meter the gas, and they dump it basically straight into the motor. I've seen a couple variations of how they do it, where they'll just drill out a carburetor and they'll run gas right in and just use the pressure of the atmosphere to try to atomize it while it's going in. So obviously you're going to run what's called rich. So you're going to have too much gas, and you can whitewash the pistons. You can destroy an engine that way. But on these old engines that are cast iron and stuff, they seem to last forever. I've seen guys run it that way for 10 years. So worst comes to worst, that would be something I would have to start thinking about. Because these carburetors are impossible to find. And if this one doesn't work properly, I'm going to have to either adapt a carburetor for like something else, completely different, some sort of watercraft or something else, and try to find the exact same housing size to hose it to. Or that's less complicated. Or I'm going to have to literally come up with a solution to just dump gas directly into the throttle plate here, which I've seen done. I don't want to do it, but I'm already in this engine too far. So anyway, but I should have had more of a grip on it myself. I've rebuilt multiple carburetors, but look at this damn thing, you guys. I came down here to talk about it. Just take a look at all the valves and whatever. And then on this one, you can't even get to half of them because I think that they're you have to pull out these. You'll have to rip out these seats right here that they cover up for the screws. I'm hoping the one they send me works. That was my big goal. So, and it's got silencers, and it's just, this is just madness. What they did in the 50s, they really didn't have them. It's craziness, you guys. The 1950s were crazy from what I can see. The carburetors from the early 2000s aren't bad at all compared to this.